I'm Ben Pugh, and you're listening to Impact, Parenting with Perspective. This podcast is all about helping parents manage the mental and emotional drama that comes with parenting teens so they can focus on what's most important, building rock-solid relationships and having a powerful impact on their teen's life. Join me each week as I dive into real tools to help you and your teen turn struggles into strengths. Hello, welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for being here. If you were here last week, we talked about modeling desired behavior versus mirroring your teen's undesired behavior. Well, today we're going to be talking about co-regulation versus self-regulation. Now, beforehand, Courtney, you asked me a really powerful question. What was that
I
question?
said, what is co-regulation versus self-regulation? Can you break it down for me?
Yeah, and here's something I think is important to understand. This concept of co-regulation is somewhat of a buzz term right now. This is a popular term in life coaching, in therapy, and it's kind of the natural evolution of where we are, like working on our own selves, our own state of being. And as we become more emotionally intelligent, we're starting to understand the emotional impact that we have on other people and the emotional impact that other people have on us. So when it comes to co-regulation, I just want to point out this is something that human beings do pretty naturally. Like when someone has a loved one who passes away, we all kind of gather around them and we're like, man, I'm really sorry for your loss. We have empathy. To the best of our ability, we kind of simulate in our minds what they must be experiencing, and we try to experience part of that to better offer support. Now, another buzzword is narcissist. Like I hear almost everyone claiming that they are married to a narcissist. Statistically, that is very unlikely. Narcissists make up a very, very small portion of the human population. But there are some people who struggle at co-regulation more than others. Now, one of my problems with this idea of co-regulation, oftentimes people will blame their lack of self-regulation on someone else. Well, I would be able to regulate better if so-and-so would better regulate their emotions. The problem is that is a very disempowering perspective because it shifts your attention from something within your control to something outside of your control.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to teach this really important principle. Like as if I'm in the scientific community.
Come on.
It didn't even take me. Okay, so smart people somewhere have determined that, like, man, young children can't really self-regulate. That's why they cry. That's why they need you to come in and change a diaper or feed them. Or even like maybe you have a 4-year-old that doesn't need you to change her diaper and they can like climb on the shelves in the pantry and go get food. And yet when something really bad happens, they come to you and cry and they just want to cuddle. They want to co-regulate. They want you to help them. Now, the thing that I feel like people are missing, and this piggybacks on what we talked about last week, probably more 2 weeks ago when I talked about letting your teens like hit rock bottom and really go through sucky life. The thing is, our teens, if we want them to open up and co-regulate with us, we need to do a really good job of self-regulating our emotions so that we can be in the emotional state where we're actually beneficial to them. And one of the things that I see all the time, we talked about this last week, where a lot of times parents will they'll mirror their teens' anger, they will mirror their teens' fear or panic. As herd animals, we kind of like to get together and intensify each other's emotions. Like it's kind of that mob mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can have the skill of regulating your own emotion, you will make yourself kind of a firmer foundation where your teen can come co-regulate with you and start building some foundational components as to how they self-regulate. Is this all making sense to this point?
It is. It makes me think of when I texted you earlier this week about my son and I lost it. Oh my goodness.
That's okay.
Oh, and I said to you, sorry, I said to you, I haven't been the best example of emotional intelligence or intention, being a good example of self regulation. That's only going to help our kids, our teens. It all comes back to us at the end of the day. It all comes back to us.
Yeah. And let me just throw this out there just so that none of you beat yourselves up. If you look back and you're like, man, I have not been a good example, I have not modeled the relationships or the emotional intentionality that I wanted, like whatever it is, there is a common myth that if you haven't done it by now, it's too late. And that is a lie. It is never too late. And I have seen multiple families. Like I have worked with, like you and I were just talking about someone. I won't
Yes.
mention her name on this podcast, but I remember specifically at one point, like she had her youngest at home and everyone else was moved on and grown up, had their own families. And she's like, when I first started working with you, gosh, we might have been on a phone call. Anyways, basically what she said was, when I first started working with you, I felt really bad because I didn't know this stuff and I didn't implement it with my older kids.
Hmm.
And she's like, but now it was close to Christmas time. They're doing a little bit more as a family. And she's like, I realize how much me knowing this and being the change has already improved our relationships. And the truth is, if you feel like, man, I have failed my children, that's a lie. Don't get into that type of thinking because it'll make you feel like crap. You can choose to think something different, like, man, I didn't know any better back then, but now that I know better, I will be better and it will have a positive impact. Doesn't matter when it is. In fact, just to take it even further, I coached a lady once upon a time. I'm actually still working with her. We just talked a couple weeks ago. One of the first things that we ever worked on, I coached her on improving her relationship with her husband. Crazy thing is, her husband had died of cancer several years earlier. And she was like, I just catch myself still being mad at him, still hanging on to certain things. She was able to improve her relationship with him. He didn't have to do a darn thing because he was dead. Like, I promise you, it is never too late. Any work you do on yourself, and by the way, this is self regulation. Like the work you're doing on yourself, the skills that you're learning, the way you're being more intentional, that is your ability to regulate your mental and emotional and behavioral states. So let's rewind a little bit. Man, I'm going to pull a Courtney. I just had an idea and it left me.
This podcast is for those of you with eight. Welcome to
Yeah,
the.
welcome to the club. Here's the thing, when it comes to self regulation, this does not guarantee that your teenager will automatically follow your lead and start mirroring you, but it does show them, hey, there is a better way to handle this. And I'm practicing that, I'm working on that. When it comes to self regulation, there are three things that I think we should keep in mind: emotional health, and I'll give you the definition to all of these. The best definition that I made up once upon a time, but emotional health, emotional intelligence, and emotional intention. If you can get these three things down, you can start elevating your own emotional management, your own self regulation. So, the first one, emotional health. Have you and I ever talked about this on a podcast?
Yes, we have.
I think it
Uh,
was recently, right?
it was in the last month, I'd say. There's a couple, and they're all very similar. The ability to feel. Okay, hold on. Recognize,
Experience,
experience,
and
recognize.
you're jumping ahead. They are all similar.
What's
Emotional health is your ability to experience any and all emotions. And this one's important because I hear parents all the time. They're like, man, my kid is just super sad. They're just not emotionally healthy. And I'm like, if your kid was only happy, they would also not be emotionally healthy. Like, if your kid can be sad and happy and mad and just chill, they're probably emotionally healthy because they can experience any and all of the emotions. Like, none of them are off limits. We want to have experience with all of them. Emotional intelligence, that's one that you were kind of bringing into it. That's the ability to identify what you're feeling and to identify the thought that's making you feel that way. So if you're feeling super sad, if you can pause and be like, wait a second, what am I thinking about that's making me so sad? Oh, I was thinking that I wish I were in Utah hanging out with Ben in the desert, and I'm not. And so there's this progression. We go from emotional health, which takes away kind of the stigma around certain emotions. And you start to realize, oh, you know what? I can feel sad and still be emotionally healthy. I can be pissed off at the world and still be emotionally healthy. That's fine. The next progression is being able to identify, oh, well, this is exactly what I'm feeling. I thought I was mad, but no, it turns out I'm really disappointed. Why? And then you can identify the thought. The next step, and this is the hard one, it's called emotional intention. And this is the one where you have the power to choose how you feel and or how you behave. And the and or is important because there are times where yeah, we have the power to choose how we feel, like maybe a loved one died. Oh, we just watched a movie where it talked about this, but also in A Christmas Carol, it references
Squirrel.
they're like, man, if the dad were to be any less sad over Tiny Tim's death, he would have had to love the kid less. Like there's these situations where maybe you're experiencing extreme sadness and you're like, well, I could change it, but then I'd have to change like how I think about the person, how I feel towards them. I'm not willing to do that. Well, okay, like you don't have to change how you feel. You can also choose how you behave. And that's kind of the thing where I might be completely devastated. And yet I still get dressed. I still go to work. I intentionally behave the way that I want to. And that is a big part of self regulation because one of the things that I notice all the time, like people talk a good game and almost everyone's either got a therapist or a life coach and they're familiar with the idea of emotional regulation. The problem is they haven't ever been told like no, it's okay to be mad, it's okay to be depressed, like whatever you're feeling, that's okay, and that's part of what makes you emotionally healthy. When we can understand that, that makes self-regulation so much easier because now you're not trying to avoid certain emotions or that. Now you're not trying to avoid certain emotions like the plague. That will help you better regulate because nothing is off limits. And once you develop that emotional health, you'll be surprised at how much your emotions actually inform you about what's going on with you. So,
Hmm.
anything that you'd like to add at this point?
No, I think you do a great job. I'm just here to agree with you.
Courtney is here for two reasons. Number one, keep me on track, which you failed at
I
that part.
fail. Yeah.
She didn't know that was her job at that time. The other thing is to agree with everything that I say. And the last one is to make sure that what I'm saying actually makes sense. So
Oh, those are ones. I have a hard.
I and those are not your job. You are free to disagree. Let's take this up the progression though when it comes to self-regulation. So emotional health helps us realize that whatever we're experiencing emotionally is normal, it's good for us, it's part of what makes us emotionally healthy.
Mhm.
That makes emotional regulation a little bit more attainable because too many times people think emotional regulation is avoiding certain emotions. That is not the case. It is
Yeah.
being able to experience those.
Hmm.
Step two, we can loop in emotional intelligence. Once you realize, man, it's healthy for me to experience any emotion, start developing your intelligence and understanding what you're feeling and why. There's a point, I still struggle with this from time to time. I grew up in a relatively poor family. I don't know, we had like 30 horses. So you might like look at us and be like, how are you guys, how can you afford 30 horses and yet you're poor? But we were poor. There are times in my business where I will catch myself worrying about money or worrying about stupid things. And before, I would just try and avoid anxiety and avoid worry because those aren't healthy. Now that I understand, no, you have to be able to experience those to have emotional health. Now I get to the point where I'm like, they're just trying to tell me something. What exactly am I feeling? Oh, I'm feeling worried. Why? Oh, because I haven't signed a client in a while. Or because I'm thinking I'm not as far along as another coach, like Mel Robbins. I see her on these podcasts. Just today, I was like, how do I get on those podcasts with like all these big names and whatever?
Stick
Someday.
with it. Put yourself out there. If you listen to her book, she tried for a couple years before she really put herself out there. She did all kinds of speaking engagements. It took her a long time to get where she is, for
See,
sure.
I'm not behind.
No, you're not.
See, now, perfect. That is a perfect example of emotional intelligence. I have the power to identify what I'm feeling and to understand why. What is the thought behind that? And then that leads you over into emotional intention. Like, I can choose to believe that I'm behind all the other life coaches in the whole wide world, which is funny. Someone came and asked me if I could be their mentor in how to life coach. So apparently, I'm not behind everybody. The thing is, I can choose to think I'm behind everyone. I already know how that makes me feel. I can be intentional by thinking other things. I can channel my inner Courtney and be like, Mel Robbins took years.
For sure.
I'm not behind. I'm just building something amazing.
And who are you behind? Who are you comparing yourself to? It depends on the pool of people that you're looking at. I'm sure there are plenty of people that you don't even know of. So you can't even say you're behind because those people aren't even on a radar.
Yeah. I compare myself to Jesus and Ted Lasso.
That's fine if that's what you want to compare yourself to.
I'm joking.
I know.
I know from experience, comparison, that's one of those things where my emotions give me a feeling. I'm like, man, this doesn't feel very good. What am I thinking that's creating this? Oh, I'm comparing myself to Courtney. I'm comparing
Mm,
myself to my neighbor. That leads you to emotional intention, where you can now intentionally choose where you're going to place your attention. And sometimes that uncomfortable feeling and where your attention is, that is exactly where it needs to be. And it's uncomfortable, but I'm going to intentionally choose my behavior. And even though I'm scared, like I did a speaking engagement a while ago in front of like 1,000 middle school kids, I was scary. I had to intentionally choose my behavior because I couldn't change. Like, yes, I was excited. I can like manage my emotion. And I'm like, man, this is taking too much time. I just need to manage my behavior. What do? I get dressed. I go to the school. I set up. Like, I just intentionally do the behavior. The thing that people don't realize when it comes to self regulation and co regulation, oftentimes we look at the people around us and how they're struggling to self regulate. And maybe that co regulation space isn't looking the way that you think it should. You are probably the catalyst that can change that whole environment by simply being the change, being the one who has the power to regulate how they think, how they feel, and how they behave. And the truth is, this comes with practice. I have parents all the time that complain that their teens can't handle this. Here's a secret about your teenager: cognitively, they revert back to like the terrible twos, like 3 year old, 4 year old mentality in a freaking adult's body. Like, of course, they're going to struggle regulating their emotions. That's natural. It's part of the experience and the best thing that you can do. And it doesn't mean their emotional state is going to change, but you can manage your own emotions. You can regulate yourself, which helps them better co regulate, even if co regulating looks like them avoiding you, because that's really common for teenagers. Probably not for Courtney's teens, but
yeah,
the rest of
right.
us.
I have to go find that kid when I want to talk to him. He's always hiding out.
So, any questions about co-regulation, self-regulation, how to apply it to parenting? Like, is there anything that we need to hit a little bit harder?
I mean, I think it all makes sense. It's very similar to the modeling versus mirroring. But at the end of the day, it just comes back to and your awareness and the choices that how you want to show up,
Yeah.
regulating it.
Can I tell you that this is one of the biggest things that I think sets me apart from other parenting gurus? Like most parenting experts, in my experience, they focus on the child
Mm-hmm.
or the teenager.
Yep.
That is the most disempowering place to put your attention. Like, you have no control in that realm. This is the most powerful thing that I could tell you. Be the change you want to see. If you are worried about your kids struggling emotionally, as much as it feels like you should run to their aid and manage their emotions, the opposite is true. Better learn how to manage your emotions. Sometimes better managing your emotions, like I'm having to learn this. Sometimes better managing your emotions is being okay with the uncomfortable emotions that you don't like. And
Mm.
typically, when we try and wade through those uncomfortable emotions that we don't like, that's when we struggle to be the type of person that we want to be.
Are you preaching to me? Is this our coaching call from my text earlier
Now, do you
this
feel
week?
like this is
I feel like you've been talking to me, and I feel like at one point you were responding to my text when you were like, parents, if you think it's too late. I was like, oh, he's talking to me. Yep.
Funny, I don't feel like I've been talking specifically to you. I feel like I've been addressing things that I have either struggled with in the past, I'm struggling with now, or multiple parents have reached out to me with the same concern.
Yeah. Because you
So,
didn't tell everybody you dedicated your podcast 2 weeks ago to me. Like you were speaking to me
well,
since
now
I was.
it wasn't only you. There's two other parents that reached out going through the same thing. Let me just tell you guys, here's a pattern I see in coaching. I coach on the same thing quite often. Like I'll have one coaching client and then I'll go to the next and I'm like, oh, that's weird. I just talked about the same thing with my last client. Then I'll go to the next and I'll be like, oh my goodness, what is in the air? If your teenager is struggling because they don't want to go to school, especially in Utah, guys, it does not feel like a normal February. Like it feels like summer is right around the corner. You're not the only one who has a teenager who doesn't want to go to school. I promise you. If your teen has been dumped recently,
Hmm.
yeah. Do you know how many parents have talked to me about their teen's relationship? Like, you're not alone. The underlying factor is this: it doesn't matter what your teen is going through, the thing that will help your teen the most is intentionally being the best version of yourself.
Yeah. No,
It's
you're right. Because like I said, I was worried about not been the best example of emotional intelligence. So I that is what I'm going to work on so that he can learn, and maybe the next breakup, I feel like he's done a decent job. I don't know what's happened. He hasn't talked to me about it, but I got to tell you guys, like when I text Ben, I was like, how do I talk to him about this? Like, what do I say? And he's to me with like nothing. Like this will help him learn resilience. Just be there. And I was like, that is not what I wanted to hear. Like, help me, give me tools. And I got nothing. It was crickets. But it's true. The next day he was very productive. Like, I don't know. I do just need to let him be in his emotions. And I thought about it too when I would go through a breakup. And I asked some of my friends, I'm like, did your boys talk to you like when they broke up with girlfriends? And they're like, nope. Like I just noticed like the girls stopped coming around, and I was lucky enough to find out that they broke up.
yeah.
So it's just one of those things that we do have to let them navigate. But I just
And I'm going to tell everyone exactly what I told you. Hopefully, you don't mind. All right. I said, and I feel bad about this. I should have front loaded this thing with like oh man, I'm so sorry. But no, no love, no support. Sorry. But I said, seriously, deep emotional pain is part of maturity and resilience. It sucks, but honestly, this is exactly what today's teens need in their lives. This might be a good spot to skip questions and curiosity and just remind him it sucks. He'll be okay. And he's lucky enough to have the best mom ever. And then I, in parentheses, said, just tell him you love him. Like, you don't want to
word
go
for word.
flexing your teen.
That's exactly.
The truth is, like, we're talking about self regulation. If you want to up level your resilience, there's a book called Anti Fragile by, I can't remember. The book was overly long. I don't know. Some people love it. I liked the concept of it, of being anti fragile, which means that you're not just resilient, you're like the opposite of fragile. Rather than being easily breakable, you are proactively gaining strength. And for any of my Harry Potter fans out there, like there's this concept that like the sword of Gryffindor is able to, I don't know, kill a dragon or a basilisk or whatever. And whatever poisons or toxins or evil power is in the thing that it kills, it absorbs the power for its good. Like it just becomes stronger. We're the same, guys. We have the capacity to experience horrible, terrible, emotionally awful things and use that for our good. This is unpopular, but guys, we should not be babying our children because we're so afraid of trauma and protecting them from trauma.
Mhm.
We can't even accurately define what trauma is. Like there are people that have the cushiest life and something happened and in their mind that was traumatic and that is holding them back. And we've had people like I was a foster dad. I actually have four adopted siblings, one from Russia. And man, some of the things that they've had to go through are pretty traumatic. And for them to be like, that was just life. Like it's not as bad as everyone thinks it is. The secret here, the underlying truth. We can't control how other people respond to things emotionally. What we need to do is define who we want to be, manage our emotions using those three simple tools: emotional health, emotional intelligence, and emotional intentionality. And by doing that, we will then have the power to help others regulate their emotions. But right now, if you like look at the US population, like we're divided, we're fighting, we don't like each other. It's a bunch of non-regulated people trying to co-regulate with other non-regulated people. We got to be the ones that are willing to put in the work and regulate our own state of being. All right, directed to you.
Uh-huh. It's okay. It's all right.
Okay, well, I have no idea what we're going to talk about next week, but
It'll leave them in suspense. It'll be a nice.
I know, just come back for whatever it is. It'll be awesome. And Courtney will probably bring donuts. But as a football coach and as a principal, I would always just like say, someone will probably bring donuts. You'd be surprised at how many times someone actually did bring donuts.
Oh my goodness.
So I don't know how many listeners we have, but you might want to make sure that everyone gets at least one.
I don't need any donuts. If I buy them, I'll eat them. So I'm sorry, everyone. No.
Okay, well, I tried. All right, guys, we'll come back next week. As always, if you have found this helpful, go leave us a positive review. That helps parents just like you start getting the help that they need. And that's powerful. I think we can all be supporting people around us. So thank you for being here. We'll see you next week.